Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we are joined by Matt Perry. Matt, thank you so much for joining. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can now. Sorry, I muted
Yeah.
you on Twitch. Good start. I muted you on Twitch. I had two of you again, which wasn't unpleasant. It was just confusing.
Yeah, the delay is definitely rough. But yeah, so Matt, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So for those of us who aren't familiar with your work, do you mind giving us a little bit of an overview of kind of who you are, what you're into, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so basically, I've been writing animation libraries for probably too long. I started with Pop Motion, which was my first. It's more of like a low-level
Mm-hmm.
functional animation library for like people who really want to get stuck into the details. It has no opinions, and you can still use it today. It's still something I write. And then I released Pose, which was
Really,
the
just right.
React.
No wait
Where,
at all. Just right
where
into
did
the
these
corgi.
dogs come from? I feel
so
like I'm under siege.
so this is the corgi storm. The chat gets a little unruly. Everybody's very excited about this episode. I think animation is one of those things that I think everybody really struggles with, right? And so the opportunity to see someone who is as proficient in animation as you are actually walk us through how we can start doing it ourselves has stirred up a lot of excitement, and the chat is expressing that via corgi.
Oh, I see. Cool. Well, that's, yeah, just as well. Maybe I should have made that the example today. I don't know.
Oh, hey, we got all sorts of folks in here. Lily, Tony, Lucky number 11. What's up? Yeah, everybody's here. Okay, so sorry, we interrupted you as you were introducing yourself. Chat, behave yourselves.
I haven't even got. Apparently, I haven't even got a Twitch account. Let me fix that. Uh, so yeah, so I've been. So Pose was. I would say hi to everyone, but okay, apparently I'm not logged in. Yeah, so Pose was the first React integration that I did, and that was people preferred that, shall we say, to Pop Motion because it made things simpler, which was a lesson
Mm,
for me. And then I joined Framer specifically to write an animation library that designers would be happy using.
cool.
Um, and yeah, and that's resulted in what I considered like quite a simple API. Again, probably simpler in many respects than Pose, but it can do a lot more as well for quite a similar bundle size.
Absolutely. Cool. So yeah, I think like I one of the things that I think is really exciting about this is that like when you do animations in React, it's challenging on a lot of levels. Like it's challenging because you have to understand animation in general. There are all these concepts that you start to see. You know, you do your first Google search for animation, and people are going to say things like keyframes or tweening or transitions and it easing, and you start hearing these words, and it's like, okay, I've never heard these words before. I don't know what they mean. I'm not sure what to make of this. Then so that's like level one animation. Then you've got level two, which is like React is not really built as an animation library. It's very reactive and things happen instantly. So you're not just like, oh, React do an animation. You have to like do some stuff that gets React to delay updating until the animation is finished so that it doesn't instantly pop from one state to the other. And there's all this like extra thinking that you've got to do. Um, so so this is what you've been working on with Framer Motion, right? Is like how to make this a little more approachable, a little less intimidating, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like it almost went like in the opposite extreme where it was like so simple that there was perhaps some things you can't do, whereas a frame of motion we're trying to like get a good balance between those two.
Yeah.
But you did just remind me of the reason why I even made Pose in the first place, and that was, as you say, I was working with someone and she asked me what is a tween, and
Mm.
to me, like tween was the like build it. I come from like way back in the day. ActionScript, Greensock was like my first animation library. So, and you know, Flash tween is the fundamental concept
Yeah.
of A to B animations. And I just couldn't. It really struck me how much I'd taken it for granted, perhaps that tween, you know, that is a barrier, and keyframes that's a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
So with frame of motion, the whole gist of it is you just tell it that you want to animate, and what you want to animate, and it will do it. And you don't have to worry about it. It's going to be a snappy animation for X and Y. It uses like a spring, and for the like opacity, it will use a tween. You can go in and edit all that, but the idea is that at the very first glance, like it's as simple as you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And thank you so much for the subscriptions, D20 and Pilo. Really appreciate that. And so with that, Matt, I think that, like, especially with something like animation, it's so much easier to show than tell because there's so much conceptual stuff, right? So maybe it would make sense to just jump right in and start playing with something. What do you think?
Yeah, I want to do that more than anything, but I can't get into the chat yet. I'm going to do that. How about apparently this password's too easy to guess, which is terrifying, really, because that's the password I use for almost everything. Great password, nailed it. And it took me 3 attempts. Right, let's try this. Yeah, so the first thing that I'll probably show you is if I can I take over the stream for a second?
Oh yeah, if you want to take over, let's do that. Let me give you control. You should be able to share now.
So if I on Zoom just share screen, is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Oops, it's not the right screen.
I think that
fairly professional at work. So there we go. Okay, brilliant.
All right, I think this is wreaking havoc on my like hacky layout that shows your face on the stream, but we're gonna do our best to make this work. Let's see if I can pin video, make you big again, and then pull this over here. There we go. All right, no, God, stop helping. How about that? Perfect. All right, we're back in business. So we're sharing your screen, and I have not lost your video. Come on, little compooper.
Brilliant. So okay, so what you're looking at is a blank framer project, and this is the web beta. So this is something that we'll all be able to use soon. I think I'm in the chat now as well. So
I'm actually gonna stop you before you jump in because this is actually the first time I've ever looked at Framer. So can you give like a really quick, maybe the elevator pitch for what Framer is?
Yeah, for sure. It's a prototyping tool. So you can take Slack, you can take Figma designs, you can make new designs from scratch. You can do them all in Framer, and then you can make them interactive. So you can present like an app or a website on an actual device to someone, a stakeholder, or you're doing a pitch for a company or within your company, and you can have people play around with it. And you can any animations that you design in Framer, you can then go to the handoff panel and copy and paste the transitions that you've actually created.
Okay.
So that's and you can put them straight into Framer Motion. So you can also go from prototype straight into production. So I'll show you. This is sort of like an unreleased feature, but this is the magic motion stuff that I want to talk about today.
Yeah.
And we'll go. What I'll do, I'll show you something that you might receive as a developer, and where normally your heart might sink a little bit. And then we'll go through and have a look at how we might implement that using the latest Framer Motion 2. It's currently in beta, but it will be coming out soon. So,
Nikki, to answer your question, yes, Framer is what got the whole internet hyped because it worked with React.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and increasingly it exports some codes, but those capabilities are increasing. So they're not 100% yet, but they're definitely getting better and better. So I've got this device. We've got a preview up here, and this is my editor.
Okay.
We can copy this and then draw a box here. Make it red, and perhaps give it some some border radius, something like that.
Okay.
So this is going to be our button. Probably not. You can tell that I'm not the designer. I'm not going to be the person giving a developer this prototype. And then if we go into the second screen, if we copy this over, we can just like change it up somehow. Maybe it turns into a side panel. I'm clearly a quite adventurous designer, not an employable one, but and we want to make it maybe a nicer shape than that, a bit tamer. Okay, so what we can do now with Framer is link with this little lightning icon.
Yeah.
We can connect this to another frame, and we get this automatic interaction on tap. So if I click on this, we'll animate from one to the other. Likewise, we can click on.
Can you show that again? Just to it happened very fast.
It was a quick one. So actually, what I can do is go into the transition editor, and we can go in and edit all sorts of properties.
Okay.
We can change the spring and how long that will take, or we can go in and make it a time-based animation. So we'll go in and change that, and we'll just make it like a second, so we can really see what's going on when I click this button. And as I said before, you can also go in to the handoff panel, and the settings that I just created are there for us to copy paste straight into our actual production code. So if I click on this, this will now morph basically from one to the other. It's and likewise you can go back, go back to previous, and now we've got like a prototype that will go from one to the other. Whoa. So if someone was to give us that as developers, I mean, the whole morphing thing's like a little crazy, but you know, this is all on one screen. You can probably say, oh, I want to animate it, this many pixels, but when you're animating width and height, it can slow up the animation. So you want to do it with transforms. At this point, you're probably thinking about the flip technique, which I don't know if you've covered on the show, but it replaces sort of layout-y things with transforms, which is super quick. Layouts are expensive, transforms are quick. So you might think that this is a relatively simple thing to do, but then you get into, maybe the designers.
I don't know that anybody except you right now is thinking that that's a relatively simple thing to do.
If that's true, then that's okay, good, because we're gonna get that's it. We'll show that as well. But this is gonna get a little crazy, because then it might be that the designers put this button inside this component, but that component doesn't exist over here. So what do we do between those screens? But our transition thing is handling it quite well. And then you think, well, okay, well the button, we probably want a label on it. So click me, because I'm also a UX expert.
Nailed it.
Now, yeah, thanks. So we have that there, and maybe we want the text size to be a little bigger. But then what he wants is for that to automatically become the header of the following screen as well.
Okay.
And actually on the other screen, he wants it to be maybe 48, maybe not 48. Maybe he wants it to be 36. That's a little soberer. So now this is trouble, because we're doing all sorts of things, like we're animating font size and width, and we're animating between hierarchies. But actually, when you click it and it works, but you're a developer, this is where the pit of your stomach feeling starts to grow.
Okay, so I just have now I just have Framer questions. Is it only because you copy pasted that text from one frame to the other that it knew to interlink those, or is it just smart enough to know that if there's one piece of text on this mockup and one piece of text on this one, it should animate between the two?
Yeah, it's not that clever, but it's pretty clever. So it keeps track of these sorts of relationships.
Okay.
Yeah, Adam at Framer spent a long time making a bunch of logic that I don't really understand, but it keeps a pretty robust mapping of different screens and how they all relate to each other.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's basically, that's as advanced as things get, really, because when we animate between these two things, this click me text is within a component that is changing scale, but it doesn't look like it's being warped or stretched. it looks like it's the same bit of text that's on both screens. And yeah, I'll walk you through. Well, actually, while I'm here, I can show you the gist of that problem. This might illustrate the flip stuff that I'm talking about a little better.
Okay. There's a question in the chat that we might be covering later, but I'm going to ask it before it gets off screen. David asks, how do you choreograph the magic move? So like if you want different pieces to move at different rates, or stagger them or sequence them, is that all possible in what we're doing today?
Sort of, yeah. Well, magic move is totally possible. So every component, as we'll see, like can have a different transition transition prop. So within a stack, you can do that. When it gets trickier, at the moment, I've sort of imposed like an API restriction that, and I'll go through this a little later, the component that does this, but it's when you get to shared element transitions that currently you can only use a single transition for everything within the stack, so you can't do staggers at the moment. Okay. But this isn't a technical limitation. It's more of an API one. And I might touch on why this is a little later on.
Okay.
But so just to show you that without any of this correction, this is the kind of thing that happens. The width and height of a component would animate from one to the other quite nicely, but you can see the border radius, which is the same as 50 pixels here, and it's 50 pixels here, but because we're squishing the big ones down and stretching it up again, that the child gets distorted throughout the animation. Whereas we don't want any of this. We want the circle to stay the same size. We want the shadow to look the same way throughout the transition. And this is what these new, this is what it should look like basically. And that's what we're going to show how to achieve.
Okay, perfect.
Now.
Cool.
So I can, yeah, so that's all I wanted to show on my screen. So I can, if I can find Zoom again, I can stop sharing.
Okay, so let's get this over here. Maybe I can, then I'll share back what we needed here. Okay, let me get you back on screen. Perfect. All right, so now I have an empty browser window, and I'm ready. And that is all the information I have.
Yeah, and that's all the information you need. Let's have a look. So we're going to start with the the first thing I should say is that if anyone's got any questions or wants to know more about this, you can go to framer.com/motion, and all of the documentation's there. So you can look up the API, look up some examples. There's not so many examples about this the new stuff that I'm going to show you now because it's only in the beta, but that will all come.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's have a look. So the first demo that I'll show you, I'll send you this link. I'll send it to everyone in Slack actually, because this is something we can kind of all do together. Sorry, not in Slack. That would be quite private. But if I send you this this link, this
Oh, so we would need to add code. Yes, we would. Okay, so here is this one here.
Yeah, the bottom one.
Okay.
Cool. So as you can see, we just got a switch that I've designed. If you go into the styles.css on the left-hand side in the file browser, you can see that all that I'm really doing is when the switch gets an on and an off class, it will change the justify content of the switch.
Mm-hmm. Clever.
So, yeah, so you can't animate layout in, with CSS, or the only thing we'd be able to do here perhaps to make it left and right is to change the the calculated left or the X or something, and use a CSS transition. But really, what would be better is this. It's like you just want this to animate. You've laid it out how you want to lay it out, and you know that this is responsive. You don't want to have to use calc or any funny stuff. This is just it's layout. This is the way you should be laying it out. So if you go back to app.js. What we can do is just by importing. So if we import motion from frame of motion, and that's import curly quotes,
and we've already got it.
Yeah. So all these sandboxes have already been. They've all got frame of motion installed.
Was this it?
Oh yeah. So it's actually lowercase m.
Okay. Motion.
Yeah, that's it. And then to the first div there, if you convert that from a div to a motion.div.
Okay.
Then nothing will change. It's still a regular div.
Okay.
But what you can do now is add the animate prop to just before class name, I guess, is as good a place as any.
Like that, just like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, it's doing some stuff. Look at the color fades now. That's cool.
Right, exactly. So right now we're automatically animating background color because it's detected that in your CSS, we've changed background color so it can animate that.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing about that is that it doesn't matter how you've done it. It doesn't matter if it's if you've done it on style components or with the style tag. It's going to animate, no matter how you've defined those two different states.
Right.
Which means that you can also, like, if you've done stuff that's responsive, perhaps responsive or uses what's the accessibility media queries.
Nice.
Then this will change, depending on that situation, basically.
So to rephrase that and make sure I understand it correctly, if I'm let's say I'm doing this and it's more like visually upsetting, like it like flies across or something, and I set my
like visually upsetting is a great way to describe a lot of what I've designed.
Yeah, But so if we have something that is like potentially like a problem for somebody with like motion sickness or something, vestibular disorders, and I added a video or a support query, a media query that says like prefers reduced motion to turn off animation, you're saying that this would automatically note that and like ignore that stuff?
Actually, that is a good point. It wouldn't do that. We have a hook for that. But
okay.
I was thinking if you had like a different design, it would actually pick that up. But you're right. It doesn't currently turn off the animation yet. Although that is a great idea. We could detect if there's a transition property attached, perhaps. But it will do like screen sizes and stuff like that using all the helper functions or whatever, however you generate your CSS, basically. But we could also animate, even though we're animating layout rather than top or width or anything specifically to say it's moved. It's the parent that's changed its flexbox. If you go in and change the inner div to motion.div animate, and now if you click the switch,
no way. Okay, I mean I've heard this described as magic, and I've kind of made the claim myself that we were going to learn magic, but this is ridiculous that it was that simple.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad that it works for a start, but none of that was ever in any doubt. But what I want to get to is an API where you're kind of just signaling intent. So you say, this should animate, and it doesn't matter that it's changed layout, but you said you want it to animate. So even though this is actually quite complex because we're figuring out the difference between two layouts, we're performantly animating between them both. It will just work. You've said it should animate,
and you've mentioned performance a couple times here. So what you're saying is like, and I think if you're not familiar with animation, there are definitely like more and less performant ways to do animations. You can do it in such a way that it'll set the fans off, your laptop will hover off the desk, or there are ways that you can do it that take advantage of like the graphics processor in your computer that will do things in a way that doesn't make the browser do as much work. And so what you're saying is that you like under the hood, you're optimizing for the more performant ways of animating these things.
That's exactly right. So what we've got here is like a layout change, which is expensive. The browser has to figure out where everything was and where it goes, and that's probably the does it. Sorry, David just asked a question. Does this override transforms that might already be on the element style? It currently does. It will animate from one of those naturally. So if you already have that in CSS, it will animate from that transform, but it won't incorporate that transform into any future animations.
Okay.
But yeah, so there are things that will trigger layout. So if you run them 60 frames a second, like width, for instance, and you change width every frame, that's going to keep triggering layout, and that can really jank up the performance of the animation. But here, what we've done, the flip technique, it's definitely something to read into, but probably take me a little too long to explain here. But what we've done is, whenever that moves, as we saw it move earlier, we figure out how far it's moved, and then we apply a transform that's the opposite. So it'll move back visually to where it actually began, and then we animate that down to 0. And the difference here between magic motion and what we've done in the past, which is, more like this, we correct infinitely deep down the tree. So if you stretch or squish a parent, all of the children will know that this is happening and correct. So that circle that I showed you earlier that was, going big and then going small, and the border radiuses of changing, all of that will change will be corrected for every child that is a motion.div animate all the way through the tree.
That's super cool. Yeah,
and it means
like this is, I can already see just the power that this gives us for things that we know we were going to use, right? Like we know that we're going to need to slide open an app drawer, or we know that when somebody clicks a close button on our modal, that it would be cooler if it like moved off screen instead of like popping off screen. And so what this does is this is letting us take binary states of, if I remove these and we just pop back and forth, right? Like this is fine. This is absolutely acceptable. But by adding by swapping this out, this is just like that tiny bit of polish that makes a huge difference. I can already see a ton of uses where this is just like an instant upgrade in the like style and polish of apps.
Yeah, I hope so. And like crucially, it should be that it's like as close to free as possible in terms of your time and code maintenance as well. So all it is a prop. There's only so many things that can go wrong with a prop. Although I might be speaking too soon, but there's if we change the transition, it's a prop. I'm trying to make it so that there's no like or try and reduce as far as possible all of the chains of imperative codes or logic, at least, even if it's declarative logic that can go wrong, and just trying to make this as close to just props, potentially a couple of components as possible.
I mean, this is all, I mean, I'm already impressed. Like, I feel like this was, being able to see how quickly this is worth the price of admission. But let's take it further. What else can we do using this library?
Cool. Okay, so let me dig out a different demo for you.
Okay, and let me.
So the next thing. So this is, I mean, really, this is the automatic animation stuff, magic motion. This can go as far as you kind of want. As I showed you, like with all of the correction stuff, like you can do some pretty advanced high performance stuff with it. But now if I'm going to put another sandbox in the chat for everyone. It's the one from Inventing with Monster at the bottom.
Okay, let's open that up. All right.
Cool. So I actually, clearly I didn't break this quite enough. I had a working version and then worked backwards, but I haven't taken everything out. But are you trying to move
Yeah, I
the?
was trying to swap the layout so that I can. Let's see,
Oh,
can I just
I've
hide this? Oh, that's what I wanted.
never discovered this.
That's all I
Oh,
wanted
brilliant.
was to just show what we're looking at here.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So this is cool. Is there anything else that you want me to get out of here?
No, so this is just so like well, I'll just explain quickly
Okay.
what we've got here. So it's just a list of 1, 2, 3, and 4, and what we've got is you can see in the LI that we've got a class that gets appended with selected if this is the selected class, and if it is the selected item, it will go big. I think with font size in the CSS. And likewise, we've got this, yeah.
Selected. Yep, with font size.
Cool. Okay, so, and then in the, you've got this underline thing. Now, you can see on the one at the moment that it's like width 100%, it's offset, position absolute, it's been taken down a few pixels with bottom -4. So there's a few, I'm not certain that that's like the cool new way of styling things to CSS. There's probably some CSS grid that I could have chosen to make the same effect. But the point is, with width 100%, it like naturally takes up the complete width of the container list item. So in app.js, you can see within the item component, the other thing that it does is conditionally render the that underlying component. So if it's selected, it literally just takes it out of the tree. And if it's not selected, yeah, sorry, and if it is selected, it puts it back in. So if you go to the list item, the first thing we can do is animate the 1, 2, 3, and 4 much in the same way that we just did.
Okay.
So if you add after well, if you change the li to motion.li.
Okay. Well, if I can spell it, motion.li.
And then exactly like before, we can add a transition prop.
Oh, a transition prop.
Oh, sorry, no, you can. We can do that. Yeah, why not? But yeah, so that animate
Ooh,
now. If you
look at that. That is slick.
So because all of them have animate, they all change, they all re-render at the same time. They all animate into their new positions, and they use instead of animating font size, because they're different sizes, they animate using scale instead.
Gotcha. Okay.
And to scale, font size would trigger layout, but it also looks a bit shit. Like you think you want it, but it's quite a jittery sort of animation that you get out of font size.
Yeah, font size is like you can kind of see the fonts jitter. They're kind of janky. It doesn't feel smooth at all.
Yeah, and there's a few reasons, like that you can't do subpixels. It's re-layouting every time. There's so many reasons, but scale really does a better job of this.
Okay, very cool. So this isn't what you wanted me to do, though. You wanted me to do something else.
No, that was it. Yeah, that was
okay.
cool. But you can. I did accidentally say transition. I wasn't going to get into this, I guess. But if you add transition equals and then add an object, if you write duration : 0.5, and then click around, you can see that this animation takes a different amount of time. You could use anything here. You can use spring physics. Oh, unless have I broken the transition prop?
Is it maybe because I have the animate in? Do I need to take it out?
Do you know what? Just could you try refreshing the preview panel for us? The the little web page, because sometimes the hot loading. No, okay. What I think's happened. Oh, I know what it is. Okay, so at the top, this is what I was talking about. This is probably good that this came up. as David asked earlier, can we define separate animations for every component? You can, but if they're magic or also automatically animating, if they live within an animate shared layout component, they all currently use the same animation. So at the top there on line 10, we've got a animate shared layout component.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wanted to have you put this in. Yes, if you take it out for a sec, we can see that the transition will work, and that way we can.
Okay, so let's take this out, and we'll.
So let's pretend that was never even there because I accidentally left that in, and that was my bad.
Okay, and now our duration works, so it's nice and slow, like horrendously slow.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's speed that back up. There we go. Nice.
Yeah,
that's better.
So what we want now though is for this underline to, when it pops out of the tree in one place and reappears in another, we want it to animate out from that place. So to do this, we use, have you ever heard of shared element transitions?
So if I can explain what you just said back to you to make sure I got it right, you're saying that when I click on one, you want this to not disappear, but to like shift over?
Yeah, exactly. So that blue line, I want it so that when you click on that red one automatically knows that, oh, I need to animate from this width and size. I need to animate from blue. And then we'll do that on mount.
And like, this is complex because this is we're in an ordered list, and then we're inside a list item, and then we've got this div. So you're saying that this div needs to know to look back up to the ordered list and then into a different list item to find the other underline and then animate between the two.
Essentially.
Okay. So that's wild.
I mean, that is the gist of it.
I'm thinking about how I would even start to do that if I was coding it myself. And yeah. I think the short answer is I wouldn't. I would make an excuse about not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Because what you do is go, okay, well, realistically, this is going to take me, 4 or 5 days of work, a lot of headaches. And you tell that to a stakeholder or so the PM, they'll say, well, don't do it then. It's not that crucial that we put that much time into it. And as a result, it doesn't happen.
Right.
The web gets a little worse. And so we're going to do it in, apart from my rambling, probably like all up it's 30 seconds worth of work, this. So what we need to do is to reinstate that animate shared layout component. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, so now whenever stuff happens in here, animate shared layout can orchestrate it and keep track of the children that are coming in and out of the DOM or the React tree, I guess.
And so if I understand correctly, what this is doing is it's basically saying, like, this is an explicit declaration that everything inside of this container is connected.
Sort of essentially, yeah. It's like you say, you're declaring your intent. Exactly. Like you are saying these things should all know each other. And when one of them changes, it's likely that we need to respond to that change in, all sorts of places. So, as I said, this is like beta software. So there is a couple things that it doesn't do that you probably won't run into, but in my head, like I know the bugs and I know what I've got to fix basically.
I think that's the doom of being a software developer is we always know the evil that lurks just on the other side of our code, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm shepherding you into situations where it hopefully isn't going to happen.
Okay, so I've got my animate shared layout. And we've got this animating the way that we want. So then this is no longer going to work. So I should take this out.
Yeah. And you can move it though to animate shared layout. You can adjust that still.
Oh, okay.
It just needs to live there basically.
So now there's our 2 seconds. Good. Not 20 exactly. And a half. Okay, there we go. Better.
That really is slow. So I've used that for debugging though many a time as well. And I should point out, it's not just duration that we have, but you can use different easings and spring physics for now.
Sure.
So to make this underline transition, all we have to do is where we've got class name equals underline, on the next line, so this is line 22, on the next line, type in layout ID equals underline, and then try that.
Wait, what? Like this?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're.
Sorry. yeah, the words. Yeah. It's like, have you ever heard that tweet? What was it where someone was saying, oh, I'm going to learn coding this weekend. C #C or something. C hashtag.
Ooh, yeah, look at it go. Look at that. That, that deserves a corgi parade.
I'll take some corgis.
Good timing. Good timing, chat. So that's amazing. And that's it. Like so basically, okay, so I'm going to reverse engineer this and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So what we've done is we've said, all right, so we're going to use motion from Framer Motion. And we're going to signify that these elements, which are a list item and a div, should be animated. And we do that with this animate prop. And that is what was giving us, if I take this out, that gives us the animation here, where we're getting the 1, 2, 3, 4, where these are looking ahead to figure out where they're supposed to be, and then doing the reverse transition as you described to get them from where they are to where they should be.
Yeah.
And then when we add this animate shared layout and a layout ID, what we're saying is look inside this whole ordered list, and anything that shares this layout ID should be considered like this, air quotes, the same, right? So that when I animate from this one to this one, it knows to take the underline from here and treat it as the starting point for over here.
Exactly, yeah. And the way
so slick.
Oh, so yeah, I got you like it.
This is the kind of stuff I always want to do, little things like this, and I always start trying to code it myself, and then I just give up because I'm like, I'm going to spend 3 weeks down this rabbit hole of trying to build these really cool transitions, and then I'm going to change my mind about what I want it to look like in a month, and I'm like, well, that's just not worth it. It doesn't have the shelf life. But if I can play with these ideas like this and do something really quick and really small that gives me these little interactions, all of a sudden it's so much more feasible to say, all right, let's try a weird effect. Let's try a cool transition and see what happens. Super cool. Just incredibly cool.
Yeah. I want it for it to be like expressive and fun and things, because some things that are hard as well, like you're not going to experiment as much, like you say, like it's not just a barrier to implement them in production,
right?
It's also, you might have just an idea that you want for your personal blog, you want to do it after work, like there's a big difference between it that's going to take you 2 nights of work versus 15 minutes or something, to the point where you probably just won't bother doing it, and that's a shame for all your users, because it could be cool.
Yeah. So one of the things that you showed us, and there's a question about it in the chat, is you showed us that like button to modal transition. Do you want to? Can we do that? Can we like build that transition?
Yeah, we can. It depends. So your CSS might be a lot better than mine. I wouldn't personally live stream, but if you can code up those 2 states, we can animate between them.
I should be able to do it. Yeah, let's
cool.
Let's see. So maybe what I can do is I just need to get out from the package JSON, if I can find it. Did I lose it? Where's my file? There it is. So I just need this Framer Motion beta, and then I can go to a code sandbox.
Is that right?
I'm going to create a new one. Create a sandbox. Go with React. And then I'm going to go into my package.json and add Framer Motion. Okay, so when I save that, it should, put it in. All right, and then my 2 states are, so can I do like 2 separate components? Like, can I do like my sidebar is one component and my button is another, and it'll transfer between the 2?
Yeah, so that was actually, we might show this demo after, but this is cooler what we're doing now. So yeah, make two entirely different components
All right, so let's
that are good.
import React from React. And then I'll just do inline styles to make this fast, but we'll do a button. And our button is going to return a button. Let me put it in a div actually. So you had put this inside of a div that was like, we'll go with 100%, and then we'll set a background of, let's do powder blue, and we'll set padding of, well, we'll make it kind of big, so like 4 rem, and then inside of that div, we're going to have a button, and that button is going to say click me, and then we're going to add some style to that. So we'll go style. We had done a background of red. We'd done a border radius of, I think it was 20, and we will set some padding of like 1. And let's set a font size as well. And the font size will be like 24. I think that'll work. Okay. And we'll export default button, and let's get that on the screen. So I'm going to import my button. And we'll drop this down here. Okay. I'll take that.
Nice.
Not my best work, but
that's our boy.
Oh, I know what I'm going to do to make that. It's the box sizing is what broke our horizontal scrolling. There we go. Okay, so so now we've got our section here, and then I'm going to add another one called panel, and I'm going to take my button and copy paste it so that we don't have to do all that boilerplate again. Call this one panel. And this one is going to be, let's see, we'll go position absolute. And you wanted to put that top, left, and then we'll set a width of, we'll say like 80, oh, whoops. 80 vertical width, so we can get rid of that one. Make our background like, what was the color that you used? We'll just use regular blue.
I think, yeah.
And then we'll make the padding a little bit less intense. And instead of a button, we will use a heading.
And so there is some caveats, but I want to see this play out, and I'll get to the caveats.
Okay. Yeah, and so I'm going to leave these parts untouched. So that should be okay. And then I'm going to have my import panel from panel. I think I might have forgotten to rename it in here. Panel, what did I miss? Oh
yeah, it's a semi.
Okay. So I've got my panel, and then if I put my panel down here, okay, that works. Let me make it full height. Okay, so there is our panel, and then we just need to make that toggle. So I guess we can do open and set open be react.useState false, and then we can do like, this feels like it's probably gross, but open will be button or panel. That needs to be backwards. Okay, then I need to add an on click. See how fast I can go. And then we're just going to set open to the opposite of open. So we will just say, how do I want to do this? I guess we can just, no, that's not going to work, is it? Can I just hack this? Is that going to will that bubble?
You could get it to, you could put it on the app.
Just on the whole app?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what I did in the prototype, and I was hoping nobody was going to notice because I was clicking anywhere and the button was. But so to make it true to the prototype, we should put it on the.
Yeah. So this is kind of junky, but it's it is what it is. Like we're not trying to build it perfectly. We're trying to show the transitions.
Yeah, and I think that's almost the nicest thing about it. Like when you're doing dev stuff like this, and you're like, this one's red, this one's green, and it's obviously disgusting, but you really want to see like, okay, is this working? How does this work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is good, and like, Eco, I think you were talking about having it like accessibly hidden, but we're just going to remove it entirely from the DOM, which I think is equivalent.
That would currently be the only way to do it, although that's super interesting, and I will look into making that sort of thing happen. So, so what's that area hidden?
Yeah, we've got confirmation from Eco that just taken out of the DOM is also accessible, so that's fine.
I see. Okay.
So now, I've got this.
We have to do. Hopefully, I'm interested to see how this goes down, but I'm pretty sure it will work fine.
Okay.
Oh no.
So what do I do next? Oh no, did you freeze? Oh no. What a cliffhanger. No. Oh, Matt, don't leave us hanging. This is gonna be great because now we will just never know, I guess. Okay, so while we wait for Matt to hopefully reconnect, I'm going to try. Did you get back, Matt?
Classic internet.
Okay.
Doesn't everyone in the village know that I'm doing a live stream with Jason? Come on.
I was about to just try to hack my way through this. I'm really glad you showed up.
I was hoping you had. I was thinking when I get back, I'm going to see some crazy stuff.
Okay. So what I was thinking, here was my leaning, is I was going to get this animate shared layout and wrap this section here. Mm-hmm. And then I was going to put a layout ID on the panel and the button and just see what happened.
So because the okay, so there's two things that you kind of want to animate, and one's the dark blue thing panel container to the light blue thing, which is kind of the button container. So I would give those a unique ID. Okay. But then you've got the other thing, which is the button to the header. So I'd give those a matching ID as well.
Okay. So then in that case, I would want to actually pull in here in my individual components, and I'm going to give these, like this would be like a motion.div with a layout ID. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So let me import motion from Framer motion, and then we'll change this to be a motion.div. Oops. And I'll set this to be a layout ID of, we'll call this background. And then, or no, this one actually is not going to be that. It's going to be down here because we want the button to animate, not the background. So let's.
Well, you want both of them to animate, I think, because.
Didn't I want this to just go away? Isn't that what we did?
Oh, that one. Yeah, you're right.
So we've got our motion.button. Okay.
So there's two things that are going on that are a little different then, and I don't know how, without changing this a little bit, we're going to do it. So we've got the button, and that's kind of like our. So can you put things inside? I'm pretty sure you can put tags inside a button. Is that right?
Text inside, yeah.
So, and not just text, but like. So what we want is the button to become. So you're right. So the blue container shouldn't have an ID, but the text within it. It should have like a header. The two headers should be matched somehow as well.
Oh, so we need extra text. I got you. Okay, yeah. So we can do like motion.span.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and then I would give this like a layout ID of header. And then I'll come into my panel and we'll set this as a motion.h2 and give it a layout ID of header. Okay. And then in my app, I want to import animate shared layout. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
From Framer Motion. And we'll animate shared layout. Animate shared layout. Holy buckets. So
Okay.
that's not perfect, but that is a far cry faster than anything I could have done on my own.
It's getting there, isn't it? It's close.
Mm-hmm.
And we can fix it in relatively little time, I hope. So there's two things that we need to change from what I can see. So if you change if you add a transition prop to animate shared layout again and make it duration 1, just so we can see what's breaking.
Transition, and then we're going to add duration. We'll make it extra slow because that way we'll be able to see in the... Okay, so we can see already like our text got squishy, and then that got weird.
Yeah. So, and the other thing that's different from Framer is that the blue box is just disappearing completely, like instantly. It doesn't like animate out. So that might be solvable quite simply. There might be a small difference, but we'll tackle the text first. So what's happening here is that I didn't know this until I made this feature, but display inline components or elements, can't accept a CSS transition prop.
Oh.
So we're doing all this to transition. So if it's not getting applied, then it doesn't get corrected or it doesn't animate into the right place. So we can change that to, boom.
Okay, so we'll go inline block.
Might need that on the H1 as well.
Shouldn't, but or maybe they both need to be block or something.
I think inline. Oh, do you know what it is? So yeah, try. So what's happening? We're animating from bounding box to bounding box. So if one of them has is width 100%, but with centered text, like the bounding boxes need to match the outline of the text.
Bounding box.
If you see what I mean.
Okay.
They need to be as close to the text as possible. So because otherwise, if you had imagine you had a display block and the text was center aligned, it would measure that text as being as wide as the block, not as wide as the text. So for the visual effect, we need it to be snapped to.
So if we do it like this, then that should get out of the way. Stop helping. There we go. Okay.
Oh, boom. Okay.
So what I just did is I set the header to be inline block because by default block would go full width. And so when I set it to inline block, it just collapses down. So there would be a lot of style needs that we'd have to address in addition to what I just did if we had actual content in here. But this, at least, it like solves that problem. So probably what we would want to do is actually, I know what I can do. Let's do this instead. So I'm going to get my H2 out of here. And then I'll just wrap this in a motion.span. And we'll make it display inline block. Motion.span. Okay. And then this also needs a layout ID. Right? And so now that'll work. It does a little bit of weirdness with my, let's set the font weight on the button. So we'll match our font weight, this here, button. And then I can set the font weight to be bold, and now it'll match our stop helping. There we go. There we go. So now our font weights don't jump, and we get a nice clean transition. And if I move back to app.js, we can turn down the duration time to something more reasonable. There we go.
Awesome. So I don't know how well this is going to work, but I think because sometimes you do need to tailor these effects given the markup. Generally not. I haven't run into too much, but sometimes. But there was still the issue of the blue box disappearing.
Yes.
So if you wrap in animate shared layout, if you give the if you give that component the so this is in app.js, sorry.
Oh, in app.js. Got it.
Yeah, if you give that a prop called type equals crossfade.
Like this?
Yeah. And try that. Okay, so it still disappears. So if you then
let me slow this down again just to make sure, because yeah, it pops. Oh, look at that though. Oh, mid transition interruptions. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, it does handle.
That is beautiful. I can just pop it back and forth. Great work here. This is so slick. Okay, sorry, I'm done. Let's go back into the button.
So we're still in. I think this is going to be a quick fix, but don't quote me on that. But what we need to do is add. So Frame Motion has another component called Animate Presence, and what it does is, when you unmount a React component, you've got like no chance to animate it out because you've removed it already. So what Animate Presence does is you can wrap motion components in them, and when they get removed, all of the motion components can have an exit prop, and you can do stuff like exit equals opacity 0 or something like that. And what it will do is it will keep these components around until all of the motion components in each separate child have finished their animations, and then they're considered safe to remove. So you can have as many of these in a top level component. But what we've done with Animate Shared Layout is have it work with Animate Presence, so we can have exit transitions. And crossfade needs, I think, this exit transition. So if you wrap open, so after type crossfade, you make a new, wrap that whole block in Animate Presence.
I love that auto import is one of my favorite things, I think.
Yeah, what a time saver.
Such a VS Code super hack.
I'd love to know the money worth of. So let's have it. Oh, it still doesn't. Oh, yes. I think I know what's going on. Do I? Is this true? Oh yeah. So if you go,
I feel like I'm looking into a mirror right now. This is like me debugging everything. It's like, I know. No. Am I right? Do I know anything?
Yeah, you start to doubt yourself. So there is one last that we do actually have to change. So if you go to the because this isn't because this isn't being used in the shared layout, that box is still just a box.
Right.
So if we go into, what is it, panel? Was this one?
Right,
no, it's the button one.
Adult supervision here.
Yeah, so we can actually do, as I was saying about the, so if you change that div to motion.div, I don't know how well this is going to work with the interruptible animations, but we can give it a shot. Likewise, you need to, at the top, you need to check, so after style, if you type in initial equals and then an object and write opacity 0. So what this says is that every time you can put anything in here, like X, Y, whatever, and this says like when this component is mounted, be this style, and then in animate, so you can do a new line and then animate equals object. And animate's like a super versatile prop in Frame of Motion. I haven't really spoken about it much because we're showing off like the new Frame of Motion 2.0 stuff. But this is, if you replace a string object with an actual object, that contains
That makes more
opacity.
sense. That makes more
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. With opacity 1. And then
Okay.
on the next line, copy paste initial and change it to exit equals opacity 0.
Okay.
Okay, so this may give us the results we want.
Okay. So it gets closer.
Yeah, do you know what it is? And I can show you. So, so I'm not. So the only way you could do this is by making these separate. So, or having them both in. So I'd have to. This is almost like I'll have to get back to you
Okay.
on the crossfade, but I can show you a demo where this sort of bit has been ironed out a little bit, because this is pretty close, and I can show you like how I've done it or tackled it
Yeah,
elsewhere.
I mean, and there are a bunch of ways that we could solve this too that are like I deliberately made this difficult by nesting a button inside of a div and then trying to like animate the thing inside of the thing, and it's we've definitely made this hard. Yes, this will be available as video on demand. It's also going to get cross-posted to YouTube, and it'll be uploaded to learnwithjason.dev. So you'll be able to watch this episode and the other previous 100 and something episodes that we've done of the show on learnwithjason.dev. Okay, so for now, I think I mean I'm honestly pretty happy to just kind of let that go if you are.
Yeah. I don't think I'll be able to, because I think to do this sort of thing, you either make it a shared layout component that sort of exists in both places, one with opacity 0, or you make the button like positioned over the overlay separately.
Yeah, I just got rid of the background and now it's perfect, flawless.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's the easiest. So that's a classic. Yeah, just don't do it. It's fine.
Problem solved, everyone. Okay, so then, was there anything else that you wanted to show off with this?
So I will, now that we did that, because what we just showed off was actually like pretty much the most advanced stuff that I wanted to show off. But
it's pretty dang cool.
Yeah, I'll show you. I'll find the unbroken version because I don't want to give you that. Because this will take a similar amount of time. But this is sort of the final demo, and it's not perfect. But I'll put this in the chat as the bottom link.
Okay, copy link address. Let's get over here.
And so what it might actually work better if you open, you've got the preview window URL. Oh, no, this works quite well because, yeah, perfect. So this is the App Store, as you might find it on an iPad. And all we've done is it's exactly the same. Oh, the scroll's broken. I do apologize. But we're really looking at the transition between the two states.
Oh, that's so cool.
And this uses a very similar technique as to what you've just done. I mean, you really aren't using anything different. As you can see there, the markup on the left is you've got your animate shared layout with the type of crossfade, which isn't necessary. But what crossfade does is normally when you so what this does is when you click on one of these overlays,
mm-hmm.
And this is fully React Router powered as well. So you can see the URL changing when you click on it. You can use browser navigation to go back and forth. But you can see also behind the overlay that the item that was there is actually hidden. And then this one animates out.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So at certain resolutions or certain screen widths, this text, the sort of subheader is wrapped slightly differently.
Uh-huh.
So you can actually remove type crossfade on this screen size and it will work fine. So the incoming screen will replace the old one and that will animate out. And then when you animate it back, the overlay will animate into the page. And then just as the animation finishes, they'll get swapped and the item.
Oh, yeah. You can see that happening here.
So with the crossfade, if you get these sort of janky, you can actually go into app.js and take off crossfade to see. So the crossfade is sort of there to mask these moments where the to and from might not be perfect. So yeah, if you take that top type crossfade off and try it here now, you'll really be able to see like the. You see that?
Yeah, it's
It's way
kind
it's way more noticeable.
of. Mm-hmm.
And what this is also good for is when you're going from, it's good for masking like very slightly different things, but it's also good for when you're going from completely different things. So if you've got like say a plus button and you want to open it out full screen into like a dialogue,
Right.
that's totally different. But if you use crossfades, it sort of masks that. You're not really sharing any child elements or anything, but you just want the plus to swap with the dialogue screen. You can do stuff like that with it.
That's so cool too that it opens up like with the thing, and then I can just animate right down. Uh, the potential here is like this is it's very exciting, right? Like, and this is the sort of stuff that like I immediately want to go and update learnwithjason.dev to open the videos in like a URL addressable popover, kind of a modal like this, as opposed to just like snapping the page to the next thing. Like it's very like it immediately gets my imagination going, and seeing that the way to do this is through a few React elements as opposed to tons and tons of custom code to manage state and animations and transitions. It it feels like it's not a if I was better at animation I would do this. It feels more like, okay, I can see how to make this happen. Let's play and see what I can get done.
Yeah, and that's really like what we're trying to just get to, like all of those hard bits are just sort of completely abstracted away, and because it feels like a waste of time. It's not. It can be interesting to fix these things, but ultimately they're in the way of
Mm-hmm.
what we want our UIs to look like. So we're trying to get to like a universal solution for them.
Yeah, yeah, it's really really cool. Um, how did you set up the redirect part?
Oh, the
Like how
router,
you can
the URL.
yeah, like how you can direct navigate to like, so if I go to F, it opens like that. How did you do this in I mean, I understand how it works. I'm actually more curious how this works in Code Sandbox. Maybe this is a conversation for another time.
No, well, yeah, it really is just this. You see line 25 or something. Um, it really is just React router.
And Code Sandbox is smart enough to like reroute everything back to this to the like the root when you do that.
I think it's just because it's running in an iframe. The React
Interesting.
router has that full control over the URL anyway, and then when you're in
Cool.
the other tab, it it is just that page, so
That's
it
cool.
works
Yeah.
as the usual router.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense. Well, this is amazing, and I feel sufficiently like mind blown for the
that's
day.
good. Yeah,
Is there any like next resources or next steps that you want people to take as they like continue down this path?
yeah. So at the moment, like I'm mostly, I'm going to just drop it in the chat anyway because um, why not plug it? But my Twitter is, I know it sounds daft, but that's actually where like I pump out most of the demos and
Mm-hmm.
really, show my experimentation with this. It's still in beta, so I'm kind of working through it. The other thing is for anyone who's interested in the design aspect that I showed off at the beginning, framer.com, like I'll keep your eye on that over the next few weeks because it's that's going to be super exciting as well. Um, but yeah, I think that those are the two things that I really say. You could, again, if you want to play around with it, you can go to the documentation, and it's a bit hard to find, but I'll drop these specific links in because these are beta things still, so we don't like really push them front and center.
Gotcha.
But on
Yeah.
the animate page and animate shared layout, there's specific bits for the APIs that I just showed off.
Okay.
And I'll just drop that in the chat as well. But yeah, those are the things. You can play around with it now. It's pretty robust, but it is, like I say, in beta. So there's going to be edge cases that people run into. I think what I would say is if it works and you've got something working, which is likely, then it will continue to work. But it might be that you come across a use case that we haven't thought of, for instance, and so we need to like figure out how to get that working.
Yeah.
That's more likely, basically, than anything.
Well, this is super cool. I am really excited to go out and play with this. Maybe we should talk a little bit about performance. So you talked about the performance of the animations. How big are we? Like, what is the performance cost of using something like Framer Motion on a site?
Yeah, so the main, as you saw, like the main input was motion, the motion component, and because of the all-in-one API, there is a size cost at the moment. It's 26K, I believe, gzip minified, which is a little bigger than Pose was, but not by much. And then if you import animate shared layout, animate presence, you're looking at like a half a K, 1K for each of those.
So as long as you're using like, take advantage of ES modules and the natural like tree shaking that's going to come with that, you're only importing the pieces you actually use. So it should theoretically, assuming your bundler is set up properly or you're using native ES modules, you're only going to take a fraction of the total package size. Is that correct?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, but what I would say is that because I really care about this, and I've tried to architect it in a way that a lot of all the functionality is loaded in via components, like subcomponents. So the motion component will render like, oh, this is draggable, this is magic motion, this is whatever, based on the prompts that it receives. And I want to get to a place, because all of this stuff is ultimately it's not for your first paint. So there's only a very limited number of things that we really need to render for that. So I'm looking into how we can get the motion component to render, very little stuff on load, maybe, a few K basically. And then based on what you use, we can use suspense or some other asynchronous API to dynamically load those extra bits of functionality and then render them in when we actually have them loaded. That's going to be the project after Magic Motion.
Very cool. Well, Matt, thank you so much. This is really, really exciting stuff, really powerful stuff. I can't wait to see what people build with this. Chat, if you've got ideas, make sure you share them when you build them. Like, play around on CodePen, play around on Code Sandbox. Tag Matt when you share it so we can see what you're building with it. And stay tuned, because we've got a big week this week. We are going to be, in addition to Matt, we've got Doug coming on tomorrow. And Doug and I are going to work on performance for web video, which is going to be really, really fun. And then we've got another headbender with Anjana Vakil. She is going to teach us how to do real-time, live updated data visualization in the browser using Observable. I've played with Observable for like 5 minutes. It is, I don't even know how it works. It's going to be a fun episode. So definitely check out the schedule and stay tuned, because we are going to raid. Matt, thank you again. Really, really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next time.